Donald Trump is once again obsessing over making Canada the 51st state, and this time his desperate pitch is more pathetic than ever. In a speech to military officials at Marine Corps Base Quantico on Tuesday, Trump returned to his favorite delusion, telling generals that Canada should just join our country to get his Golden Dome missile defense system for free. But here's what makes this latest outburst so telling. Trump is essentially begging Canada to become part of America because his tariff war is backfiring spectacularly. Trump claimed that Canada called me a couple of weeks ago asking to be part of his missile defense shield. His response? Why don't you just join our country? Become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. This isn't diplomacy, it's the desperate plea of a man whose economic warfare against America's closest ally is crumbling before his eyes. Trump admitted he doesn't even know if his pitch made a big impact, revealing just how out of touch he is with reality.
Immediate lens, Carney says he spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this week in New York, that meeting coming around the same time Washington imposed tariffs on pharmaceutical goods.
We're engaged with the U.S. In ongoing discussions on some of those specific strategic areas. Those conversations are ongoing. I had a higher level conversation with the president a few days ago.
The latest tariffs would see 100% import taxes on pharmaceutical drugs, along with duties on other kitchen and bathroom items, furniture, and heavy trucks.
The timing couldn't be worse for Trump's territorial fantasies. Just this week, he announced devastating new tariffs, 100% import taxes on pharmaceutical goods and movies made outside the United States, along with duties on kitchen and bathroom items, furniture, and heavy trucks. These aren't the moves of a confident leader. They're the flailing attempts of someone losing control of the economic narrative. What's particularly embarrassing is Trump's claim that Canada is having a hard time because of his tariffs. The reality? Polling shows that 56% of Canadians have actively bought Canadian products in the past 2 weeks, specifically to counter Trump's trade war. Nearly 60% have gone out of their way to avoid American products entirely. Trump's tariffs aren't bringing Canada to its knees. They're uniting Canadians against him like never before. Prime Minister Mark Carney has repeatedly shut down Trump's annexation fantasies with diplomatic precision that makes Trump look like an amateur.
Under fire from the Conservatives for spending too much time abroad, Mark Carney defended his recent trips to both the UN in New York and here to London.
You actually have to do the work. You have to meet with the leaders to make sure the work's being done. You have to mark progress as it's being done, which is what we're doing with the various European leaders.
Carney met with the Prime Minister of the UK, Iceland, Spain, and Australia while he's here in London, but he didn't sign any new trade agreements, including the long-negotiated Canada-UK free trade deal. That led Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre to tweet, "These trips are nothing but liberal show business to distract from spiraling debt, costs, crime, immigration, and job loss."
The Prime Minister has been traveling internationally, meeting with world leaders at the UN in New York and London, building partnerships that ensure Canada's progress on multiple fronts. While conservative critics dismiss these trips as liberal show business, Carney understands that strengthening international relationships is essential when your southern neighbor is threatening your sovereignty. When they met face-to-face in May, Carney told Trump that, as a property developer, he should know there are some places that are never for sale. Trump's response? A weak never say never, to which Carney replied with 5 emphatic nevers. It was a masterclass in how to handle a bully. But the most revealing part of Trump's latest tantrum is the context. This speech came just days after U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, said the 51st state talk was in the past, and that Trump wasn't focused on it anymore. Hoekstra specifically stated he had no direction to continue a dialogue on the 51st state, and that it hasn't been in play for months. Yet here was Trump contradicting his own ambassador and proving he can't let go of his territorial fantasies. Trump's Golden Dome proposal itself exposes his transactional view of international relations. He's essentially trying to extort Canada into joining America by dangling military protection like a mob boss offering insurance. The price tag has fluctuated wildly, first $61 billion, then $71 billion, showing Trump is making up numbers as he goes along. This isn't serious policy, it's a real estate developer's idea of international diplomacy. The timing of Trump's latest outburst is particularly telling. Canada has been making strategic moves to reduce its dependence on the United States,
consistently through that decade heading to one single location. So when you talk about enhancing the relationships, like, you know, the Prime Minister often says, like, we can give ourselves what others don't, implying that we'll be able to supplant what we lose with the United States. But the facts just don't bear that out, like, at all. So why not just be honest with Canadians about it?
Actually, I do not agree with your frame. This is being honest with Canadians in the sense that we have a trading relationship with the United States where 75 to 80% of current trade is covered under that agreement. When we talk about the sectors that are not covered, our government will, A, support those sectors as we have with steel and aluminum, for example, as we have with the auto sector, for example, and we will also work to diversify our trading relationships so that there is even greater opportunity for Canadian firms and Canadian workers to benefit from multilateral trade relationships. And I want to stress that changing the composition of a trading relationship does not occur overnight. We have work to do to ensure that we're leveraging the free trade agreements that we have signed. Again, the only G7 country that has such extensive
courting European partners, and even collaborating with Australia on Arctic defense systems. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand has been clear at the UN about Canada's three-pillar strategy: defense and security, economic resilience, and core values. The government has signed new trade agreements with Indonesia and Mexico, working to diversify beyond the reality that 75 to 80% of exports still go to America. While this diversification won't happen overnight, it represents a long-term strategy to reduce vulnerability to American economic threats. Carney has been clear that our old relationship, based on steadily increasing integration, is over. Trump's 51st state rhetoric isn't bringing Canada closer, it's pushing them further away. What makes Trump's obsession even more pathetic is that his own Republican Party would never support Canadian statehood. With 38 million people, Canada would become the second largest state after California, likely adding dozens of Democratic-leaning electoral votes. The political reality is that annexing Canada would be electoral suicide for Republicans, making Trump's threats even more hollow. Carney has handled Trump's provocations with the skill of someone who actually understands international relations. He's acknowledged Trump's territorial views while making it crystal clear they'll never, ever happen with respect to Canada. When Trump pressed the issue during their White House meeting, Carney calmly explained that Canada's owners, the Canadian people, had made their position clear during the election campaign. Trump's military audience at Quantico received his 51st state pitch with stony silence, a stark contrast to his usual rally crowds. Even America's top generals couldn't muster enthusiasm for their commander-in-chief's territorial fantasies. The nonpartisan tradition of the U.S. Armed Services meant they stayed largely silent during his speech, but their lack of response spoke volumes. The broader context makes Trump's obsession even more embarrassing. While he's fantasizing about annexing Canada, he's also eyeing Greenland and the Panama Canal, revealing a 19th century mindset completely out of step with modern international relations. These aren't serious policy proposals, they're the fever dreams of someone who thinks America can simply take whatever it wants. Canada's response to Trump's latest tantrum has been measured but firm. A spokesperson for Carney simply pointed to the many comments we've made in the past on similar comments from the president. The dismissive tone says everything. Canada isn't even dignifying Trump's latest outburst with a detailed response because they've already made their position abundantly clear. Trump's tariff war with Canada is hitting American consumers and businesses hard, but he's too proud to admit failure. Instead of negotiating in good faith, he's doubling down on territorial threats that make America look weak and desperate on the world stage. His claim that America doesn't need Canadian energy, lumber, or cars rings hollow when those same tariffs are driving up costs for American families.
This is us, I think, working together to pull out all the stops to ensure that we can save Algoma Steel and save Canadian-made steel. And ultimately, the work that we're doing today is about the sovereignty of Canada. If we don't have a thriving Canadian steel company in Canada that is producing the kinds of steel that not only foreign buyers need, but that Canadian markets need, we will not be able to reach the ambition of growing the strongest economy in the G7.
Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu there announcing a $400 million relief loan for tariff-hit Algoma Steel. The Ontario government adding another $100 million for the Sault Ste. Marie company. The demand from sectors hit by Trump's tariffs is one of the reasons the Fed say their November budget will have a, quote, substantial deficit. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is not buying what they're selling. Take a listen.
Recently, Mr. Carney appointed a parliamentary budget officer, and that budget officer is commenting on Carney's spending and his deficits and said they are, quote, very alarming, stupefying, shocking.
The Canadian government has already had to provide a $400 million relief loan to Al Steel, with Ontario adding another $100 million just to maintain domestic steel production in the face of Trump's economic W. Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu emphasized this support is about Canadian sovereignty itself, maintaining the country's ability to produce its own steel rather than being held hostage by American trade policy. The fact that Trump is making these comments to military leaders is particularly concerning. He's using America's armed forces as props for his political theater, summoning generals from around the world to hear him rail against woke policies and fantasize about annexing allies. This isn't leadership. It's the behavior of an authoritarian who sees the military as his personal audience. Carney's election victory was largely built on his promise to stand up to Trump, and he's delivering on that promise with remarkable effectiveness. His elbows up campaign slogan, a hockey term, for defensive play perfectly captured the mood of Canadians who are tired of being bullied by their southern neighbor. Trump's threats have backfired so spectacularly that they actually helped elect the very leader now, outmaneuvering him at every turn. What's most embarrassing for Trump is that his 51st state obsession reveals his fundamental misunderstanding of Canada and Canadians. This is a nation that has maintained its independence for over 150 years, fought alongside America in 2 world wars, and built one of the world's most successful democracies. The idea that they would give up their sovereignty for a missile defense system shows how little Trump understands about national pride and identity. Trump's latest tantrum also exposes the chaos within his own administration. While his ambassador is trying to calm tensions and focus on practical negotiations, Trump is undermining those efforts with inflammatory rhetoric that makes serious diplomacy impossible. It's a perfect example of how Trump's ego consistently sabotages America's interests on the world stage. The international community is watching this spectacle with a mixture of concern and bewilderment. America's closest ally is being threatened with annexation by a president who seems to view international relations through the lens of a hostile corporate takeover. This isn't making America great, it's making America look unstable and unreliable to allies around the world. Carney's masterful handling of Trump's provocations offers a template for other world leaders dealing with American aggression. By remaining calm, dignified, and absolutely firm in defending Canadian sovereignty, he's shown that Trump's bullying tactics can be defeated through principled leadership and clear communication. The irony is that Trump's territorial fantasies are achieving the opposite of what he claims to want. Instead of bringing Canada closer to America, his threats are driving them toward other partners and making them more determined than ever to maintain their independence. His 51st state obsession isn't a sign of strength. It's a confession of weakness from a leader who can't achieve his goals through normal diplomatic means. As Trump continues to embarrass himself with these pathetic displays, Mark Carney continues to demonstrate what real leadership looks like. While Trump fantasizes about annexation, Carney is building genuine partnerships based on mutual respect and shared interests. The contrast couldn't be clearer, and neither could the winner of this particular diplomatic battle. Trump's 51st state obsession isn't just failing, it's backfiring so spectacularly that it's strengthening Canadian resolve and making Mark Carney look like the statesman Trump could never be. In trying to diminish Canada, Trump has only diminished himself.